We're coming, and we ain't backing down.
We don't need a bunch of cats in here looking in the mirror.
Everybody just do your job. You understand that?
Hey, will you shut up?
I'm bitterly disappointed with the officiating today.
Guys being dudes.
And they run through our like through a tin horn, man.
He's lining it up. 5 seconds left. NIU up 16-14. 62-yarder. Snap, hold, Jeter's kick. It's blocked! It's blocked! It's blocked! Picked up by NIU! Picked up by NIU! The Huskies have done it! The Huskies with the biggest upset in NIU history! They come to South Bend, Indiana, and they knock off the number 5 team in the country.
Thank you, Lee. That is the Husky Sports Radio Network calling the end of the Northern Illinois Notre Dame game. Obviously, we're using that for educational purposes. If you somehow do not know that Northern Illinois defeated Notre Dame 16-14, Northern Illinois as a 28-point favorite, Northern Illinois as a 28-point underdog, which is the point. Alex Kirshner, it's week 2. As usual, you're joining me for the longest 30 minutes in college football podcasting. How about we start the show here in 3, 2, 1. Indeed, NIU 16, ND 14, Alex.
Yeah, my co-host Richard Johnson. Great to be with you on the week 2 split zone duo. Hurry up. You put something in our notes, Richard, that I think is instructive. Marcus Freeman's only been Notre Dame's head coach for 2 seasons and 2 games. And he has home losses as a 16.5-point favorite to Stanford, a 20.5-point favorite to Marshall, and now this, sort of the creme de la creme of the genre. You just can't do that. Like, for all we say about how their recruiting is going well and all of the well-deserved compliments off of what they did at Kyle Field in week 1, you just can't do that. Nobody does this.
Yeah, this is not on the defense. Defense played well enough to win. You hold NIU to 16 points. I know they did not exactly cover themselves in glory in the run game in general. Bad run fits at times, busted big plays. That's sort of what NIU is testing you, right? If you don't get them out of that run shell where you're going to be up shit creek without a paddle. Again, but 16 points, effectively really 13 points if we really want to be honest. So I get it. And Notre Dame's defense good enough to win. Riley Leonard was not good enough to win at all. Riley Leonard, to me, is the reason they lost this game. I know that Northern Illinois wants to say they didn't get any luck and they didn't need any luck. All right. The tip pick, the first one, the tip pick, like, okay. They muffed a punt at the end that they ended up getting back by stroke of luck. And the second one, the second Riley Leonard pick, I don't know if that was miscommunication between him and the wide receiver or what went on there, but that's one of those where, like, you hit the wrong button in Madden kind of interceptions.
On the Northern Illinois side, you're right. Yeah, you do need a little luck, though it is an amazing speech by Thomas Hammock after the game, and I guess before the game to his players. But they did what they do. I mean, we talked in the preseason MAC preview show about Ontario Brown. He was my split zone duo preseason dude of the year for the MAC. Dude had 225 all-purpose in this game. Thomas Hammock is an NFL running backs coach who wants to play a certain way, and they carried the ball 45 times for 190 yards in this game. And most of that was just plotting 3 to 7 yard runs throughout the day. I think they had 128-yard carry. And other than that, it really was just plugging forward all day. And then there was the big catch and run for the touchdown with Ontario Brown. They did what they do, and they kept their quarterback, Ethan Hampton, cleaner than you would think they would keep him. I don't think he actually got sacked at all against Notre Dame, which is a hell of an achievement. And it was impressive. I want to address one thing about the end of the game. NBC's broadcast made it appear in the final minute and fooled seemingly many people, including me.
Peacock's broadcast.
This was an NBC broadcast, I believe. That was
it
was on network as well as on Peacock. Peacock, as all the games are. But yes, they made it appear that Marcus Freeman had left a timeout in his pocket when they kicked the 62-yard Mitch Jeter field goal at the buzzer with 5 seconds left. And a lot of people, me included, were like, why wouldn't you just quarterback sneak it for 3, 4, 5 yards and get down and call timeout? There was a timeout that Marcus Freeman had called to preserve clock before NIU's field goal that somehow either the scoreboard operator or NBC missed. So this was not like an end of game fuck up by Marcus Freeman and company. It was just a, whole game failure by the entire Notre Dame coaching staff and many of their players. I agree, led by Riley Leonard. What it does for their postseason outlook is fascinating. I don't know. We don't have a case study about a team of this caliber losing to a team like NIU in the 12-team playoff era. I mean, they looked like a shoo-in for this thing to at least be one of the 12 a couple days ago, and now I really have no idea. So they got a lot to figure out, and it remains to be seen if it's too late or not for them to reach their ultimate goals this year. Oregon 37, Boise State 34. Richard, you don't want to do this 2 weeks in two consecutive games against teams from the state of Idaho. All due respect to a hell of a program in Boise, but they don't have the kind of athletes, except for one very specific athlete, that Oregon has. And Boise does have one specific guy who could play for Oregon or play for any of 32 NFL teams as well.
I think Ashton Jeanty might be the rare Thursday night draft pick Sunday player at running back, increasingly rare in our current day in college football. I am just flabbergasted by Oregon up front on both lines of scrimmage. They are just not very good on both lines of scrimmage in comparison to where they want to go, where they want to be in January. That ain't going to get it done. Ever. I mean, you return 2 kicks, the reason you're in this. Other than that, you really got flat whipped by Boise.
They were playing musical chairs on the offensive line for a lot of this game. They were rotating guys in and out. Again, like, a lot of respect for what Boise's built, but they shouldn't be able to do that against the caliber of athlete that Dan Lanning has put together there. Just a lot of sloppiness for Oregon. A lot of sloppiness in all phases of the game. They had multiple personal fouls in this game, one that led directly to a touchdown. I think they were offsides on a kickoff, if I recall correctly, in this game. It just wasn't clean, and this is 2 weeks in a row where it wasn't clean. And they're getting to the part of the schedule where if it's not clean, it's going to be a certain way. I think they could be fine, but I will note that there are other national title contenders, one of whom we move to right now, that have this kind of talent that Oregon has and aren't doing this. One of them is Texas, 31, Michigan, 12. I'll do the Texas part first. Keep it quick. They're great. See you in January, possibly for multiple games. Richard, would you like to take the Michigan part?
I think the brilliance of Texas to me is that Texas built last year's team, I think, on the strength of its defensive line. I think this year's team is certainly built on the strength of its offensive line. Mm-hmm. It is a 10 deep unit that I believe 9 of them are homegrown players. No portal guys, they are homegrown. And they got a couple Sunday picks. The center's really good. The tackle's really good. They've got good players up front there, and you can tell. Because I don't necessarily think the running backs are all that in a bag of chips.
Also, I mean, they're running out of running backs.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. They're about out of running backs, to be honest with you. Michigan, I think it's actually pretty simple with Michigan too, man. They got worse at pretty much every position on offense. They play a low-margin offense. They didn't play enough teams last year to test them. And by the time they did, it was the end of the year. They were a congealed unit, and we know that what they were able to do. Then they got worse. They're worse. They'll win 8 games, but again, I've been saying it since the summer. They weren't going to beat Texas. They didn't. I don't think they're going to beat USC in a couple weeks.
No, that looks different now. That's flipped. I think USC is. I don't think. I'm pretty positive that USC is going to be favored in that game, and that will be a different feel than we thought.
Here's a question. Question, Alex. Is that game better or worse with 4 quarters of Alex Orji?
Man, it's the same, right? It's probably the same. I don't think they have a good. I think it's pretty obvious that they don't have a good option at quarterback. With quarterbacks that you haven't really seen play, if your quarterback that you have on the field is really bad and that guy's not playing, I'm just kind of led to believe that that quarterback who's not playing is bad because the coaching staff knows him better than we do from the outside. I don't think there's anything that with their pieces on the roster that they could have done at quarterback this year. Michigan fans I know are going to wonder about, could they have waived $800,000 in front of some kid in April
Kyle
when
McCord.
The portal window?
Kyle McCord.
Maybe Kyle McCord. Yeah. It's just an interesting but entirely hypothetical what if. The April portal window, which is all they had access to because of the moment when Jim Harbaugh left being in January, is pretty light on game-breaking players. And so they're just stuck this year. They're just stuck with these guys, and it's going to be what it's going to be. It is now an open question whether a former Michigan quarterback would actually have been useful for them this year. And I got to say, I'm not sure.
Yeah, and I don't.
and I think it's a cruel A cruel hypothetical for all parties.
Jesus,
Iowa State
man.
20, Iowa 19. Thought coming in, I think what I said was this could be a 20-16 kind of game instead of a 10-7, and it was close enough. It was 20-19 for Iowa State. Iowa wins the first half 13-0, and then kind of in the inverse of their FCS opener, just stops playing offense in the second half. In the second half, Iowa averaged 3.5 yards per play. That was below their 3.7 yard average last year against Power 5 opponents. They became the Iowa offense that you know and love after halftime in this game, but actually it was worse because Cade threw a pick. Also another one on the last heave, but that we won't count that one for our purposes. Been telling you a bit about the Iowa State offense too, and I think you have to like it. I mean, 20 in Kinnick Stadium is as good as Iowa State can do, period. It's as good as they've done, I think, any time in the last 22 years. Jaden Higgins had a day. Jalen Knoll really had a day. Caught the long touchdown where the safety was just a bit too flat-footed, and it didn't look very Iowa-like on defense. Their kicker, Kyle Conrarty, missed one going into half, but hit from 46 and 54. The 54 to win it was as big time a kick as you're ever going to see in a college stadium.
Did you catch Matt Campbell trying to say he set that up? Like he was like, "Oh, we didn't run another play because we." No, Matt, you didn't have another timeout. All right, that's why you didn't run another play. Let's be adults here.
It's a brutal loss for Iowa and a great win for Iowa State. Feels like losses in this Cyhawk series are brutal, always, in a way that's even more brutal than most rivalry losses, just because the manner of it is always so despicable. And yeah, this was tough for Iowa. Kudos though; they played many men as Kirk Ferentz walked onto the field for his first game post suspension. Love that, fantastic stuff. Colorado 28.
No, sir.
Written backwards on my notes.
No,
Nebraska
sir.
28. We catch that one. Nebraska 28. Colorado 10. Richard, Colorado sucks. Like they got a couple great players. They do, and I really think Shadur is a serious guy. Travis Hunter is what he is. Jordan Seaton will probably be a Sunday player one day. The left tackle.
We'll see.
One day. He's not there yet. But they just suck. And on the other side, Nebraska. Better vibes right now for this program than any time certainly since like the day Scott Frost was hired before he actually started coaching and maybe in a hell of a lot longer than that.
Colorado's running backs had a combined, I think, 13 rushing attempts. Like they're not trying to run the ball. There's no want to there to run the ball. I don't know what they have in run block, or I don't know what they have and what they don't have in run blocking because they ain't really trying to do it. Everything is these like wide open, 4 open sets, 5 open sets. Nebraska was daring them to run the ball. They were daring them to run the ball pretty much all day. Nebraska's out there with like 4.5 people in the box. Like, run it.
Yep.
Try. And they don't. And they didn't. And like Shadur blamed the offensive line at the end for like not being very good, doing that kind of ticky-tack stuff that whatever. Travis Hunter's a revelation. The rest of it, and yes, I do think Shadur is good. I think Shadur has improved from last year. The pick six was absolutely horrible.
So casual.
Horrible.
The easiest thing, the cornerback saw it from like before the snap.
Well,
for him, it's the easiest touchdown of his life.
Yeah, it's he's squatting on a late throw to the field. Like I don't know. Again, this is effectively the same Colorado team as you saw last year.
Yeah, I'd be shocked at this point based on what we saw last night if Colorado made a bowl run. On the other side, I don't think they lost to a terrible team last night. I think Nebraska is going to be above the median in the Big Ten this year. The quarterback is what he is. I mean, he's what was advertised, and he got a little fortunate. There was the touchdown on the kind of angle route to the running back over the middle of the field that probably should have been picked going the other way, but it wound up bouncing into the tailback's hands, and he goes in for a touchdown. His numbers look a little bit different if you flip that outcome of that play, but this is a true freshman who is built for it, like who can walk into a stadium like that with all of those people. Granted, they're rooting for him, but it's a loud, hectic environment, and just calm it down and go out there and play really well in his second college game. Pretty great. I think Nebraska fans do and should feel really good today. Penn State 34, Bowling Green 27. Should Penn State fans feel a level of concern about this? I think they do. I think not panic mode. I'm not sensing.
No.
In fact, I had a chat about this with my Penn State cousin-in-law after the game because I wanted to get inside the psyche of the fan base. This is like a, season ticket holder, Penn State Happy Valley type. Not panicking was the word, but you should cover somebody. And the secondary just got absolutely eaten up by Connor Bazelak and friends for Bowling Green.
In the first half. in the first half.
In
the second half, Penn State got back to business, and like Bowling Green was not scoring. Right, and I think we were texting about this during the day. Like Bowling Green's not scoring here. Figure it out, Penn State, and they did. So I don't know about a panic button. I do sort of think that Drew Aller has not really meaningfully improved from last year. I don't really see that. I think the receiving core probably has to an extent, but I think he's kind of just the same dude. And that's not
the receivers had 3 catches in this game. So I'm not sure. Their tight end, Tyler Warren, had a historic Penn State tight end output game. He had 8 for $146 on 8 targets. Their wide receivers might be their biggest problem when you kind of get down the line. Like, it wasn't great last year, and then Keandre Lambert-Smith rolled out. So, yeah, that's concerning. I think the defense, though, will figure it out. I think long-term, give some credit to Bowling Green. This looks like a MAC contender. They have some players who can get behind some guys. Credit to Scott Loeffler. Schemed it up pretty well. It's a nice showing by them. Illinois 23, Kansas 17. Richard, what happened? I was told that Illinois couldn't keep it competitive when I brought this up on the tasting menu.
Dude, Kansas. Come on, man. Like that, 4 turnovers and a turnover on downs. One of the turnovers was a pick 6. Kansas gave this game away very willingly to Illinois. Illinois' offense did not do much of anything in this game, all right? They had 2 drives at the front and the back end that turned out into 6 points, but they chewed like 30 combined plays and a whole lot of clock off that, so they did what they needed to do in that way, shape, or form. No, Kansas lost this game.
Credit to Burt and the Fighting Illini for sticking in there and taking advantage of the gifts that were bestowed upon them by the Kansas Jayhawks. Michigan State 27, Maryland 24. My alma mater dispenses with the usual start 3-0 or 4-0. And
it's nice. Hey, it's nice to get it done in September, isn't it?
It's nice to get it done in week 2. This was a disaster class by Mike Locksley. Just a complete disaster class. Maryland is winning this game by a touchdown at the Michigan State 23 with a little less than 5 minutes left. It's 4th and 1. You have a college kicker, and you decide to kick the 41-yard field goal instead of trying to get 1 more yard to get a little closer, keep the drive going, or kill it, or score a touchdown. They kick the field goal, miss. Next play, bomb, touchdown over the top. Michigan State gets a stop, scores game-winning field goal. Game over. Maryland is what it is. Mike Locksley wants students to start showing up to games. It's not going to happen because this continues to happen. From the Michigan State perspective, Nick Marsh, the wide receiver, was excellent in this game. And I really think Aiden Childs is coming around. I know that you and I are of differing opinions on this player.
You sure are.
I think he's pretty good, and I think he's going to have a career. He showed something down the stretch in this game. I mean, it was helped by Mike Locksley wanting Michigan State seemingly to somehow have an opportunity to be back in the game. But I think there's reason for optimism. And Michigan State's 2-0 under Jonathan Smith. USC 48, Utah State 0. Notice the 0.
Anthony Lucas, an absolute dude for USC. Pay attention. Washington 30, Eastern Michigan 9. 0 Wampin from the fellas.
Just wanted to note that I thought this one could get a little prickly for Washington because of the way Eastern Michigan plays in the trenches, which is deceptively tough, especially for a MAC team. And EMU sort of did that. They were 28-point dogs. They lost by 21, but not much. Indiana 77, Western Illinois 3 on Friday. This one is on here, even though it's an FCS game, because 77 is a program record for the Indiana Hoosiers.
Curtis Rourke Hive, we are back, baby. We are so back.
You know who was
never
happy?
left.
You know who was happy about this? No question, our friends at Homefield, makers of the absolute best in premium vintage collegiate apparel, founded by a Hoosier, working in Speedway, Indiana, and much like Kurt Signetti, putting up tremendous numbers in the state of Indiana. That's sales, not points. HomefieldApparel.com. Use the promo code SCD20 for 20% off your first order. In the Southeastern Conference and Atlantic Coast Conference showcase game that was played in Charlotte here, Mayo friends, how are you? Tennessee 51, NC State 10. Dude, I think the Tennessee defense is an area of the field in which they may have been slept on by many, including me.
They have the best. They have one of the best defensive players in the country. Just full stop.
James Pierce.
James Pierce.
Yeah.
Tennessee is good. Like defense is good. Offense looks pretty damn good. I think Tennessee is just good. Interesting to see what happens with Grayson McCall's not in a Jamie Chadwell offense. Also, NC State cannot run the ball. Like, it's just the days of Ike Ikwunu and Chandler Zavalha being up front there, it ain't there anymore.
I think your read was right on this one, that it was the running game for Tennessee that was really the differentiator. I mean, they could have done a lot of things worse and still won this game by a lot. That's what happens when you win by 41 points. But Nico Iamaleava his sparkling self against Chattanooga in this game, and they still just destroyed him on the ground. Very impressive. Richard, Cal 21, Auburn 13. Respect the Bears. Told you.
Auburn's got problems up front on offense, which is quite interesting. Peyton Thorne's not very good. Yeah. And you lost to a Cal that Jay Knott was very clearly not 100%.
Yeah, he was obviously injured and I think carried 10-ish times for like 11 yards in this game. But to give Cal its flowers here, yeah, Auburn's got a long way to go. Yeah, Hugh Freeze is a charlatan. Yeah, this isn't going as well as it should be in year 2. Like, I'll grant you all of those things. You still got SEC athletes around the field. Like, you've got a certain type of player here all over the roster that is hard to beat.
I think the problem is they don't. Like,
I'll tell you one place where I would agree they don't.
The helmet says one thing, but the results say something very, very dissimilar.
Where they don't is at the most important position on the field, and we've talked about it. I get it. I get what Hugh Freeze and the Auburn collective, not to imply any coordination, of course, between program and collective. So it was the collective that probably decided this on its own.
Of course not.
I understand how this works, but Auburn decided, or friends of Auburn decided not to spend on a quarterback. They decided to spend on receivers, and some of them are on the team right now, and they're really bright future players. They're going to be good, but Peyton Thorne just sucks, man. Like 4 picks in this game, most of them pretty bad, if memory serves. Yeah, I understand why they're doing it, but he's a level of bad that makes it reasonable to question it, because it kind of makes it a lost season if you're just going to have to trot this guy out. Like, it's hard to build momentum, show progress when this is your quarterback, and it's not going to get easier.
Alabama 42, USF 16. If you took USF's first half performances against Alabama, USF in the last 2 years, USF would be the best team in the country, pound for pound. 33% of Split Zone Duo LLC was early on Byron Brown. Never wrong, just early. We're early on Byron Brown. We'll come around to it probably next summer. South Carolina 31, Kentucky 6. Enough about the Kentucky offensive line, all that sort of stuff. I know that South Carolina has some gentlemen up front, and I respect that and I understand that, but Kentucky doesn't up front for them on offense.
Kind of jarring to see Kentucky's line be this bad. Some of their fans had been saying over the course of the offseason, like, we're a little worried this isn't going to be the Kentucky offensive line that you know.
It hasn't been for like 2-3 years, though. I've been trying to tell people it's been a slow degradation.
This felt like the culmination of that. Brock Vandegrift was terrible, but I'm not sure who would not have been terrible. It was an unsafe occupational environment back there for him in this game. Oklahoma 16, Houston 12. I didn't see a second of this one live. I was in the corner of my eye like, that's still kind of close throughout the night. Asked Oklahoma people, went back and looked at it afterward. The Oklahoma defense was not the issue, needless to say. But the offense, you just expect much more. Jackson Arnold is sort of like a freshman. I mean, he's a second year in the program. His first year as the starter was really sloppy here. They have a couple of wide receiver injuries, both short-term and long-term. And so they were a bit thin there in this game. But you'd like to put up a lot more points than this against a completely rebuilding, basically starting from zero Houston. And maybe reasonable to be concerned, Richard, about Oklahoma.
Should be fine against Tulane next week, but should be fine. But then Tennessee in 2 weeks. All right, you better strap it up. Florida a lot, Samford not a lot. FCS team, but Mr. Lagway, good evening. FCS team.
But I see that twinkle in your eyes right now as you say Mr. Lagway. You're excited, I can tell. Is it going to be tough for you when he's playing for Is it going to be tough for you when he's playing for Florida State or whoever next year?
FCS team. Syracuse 31, Georgia Tech 28. Apparently Kyle McCord is good. I don't know if good, but enough.
Look,
enough.
We're not going to do the September Syracuse thing full bore. This happens every year now, but yes, like he has been dealing. He was legit in this game. He played really well. The vibes are up. Like the vibes are good, and they should be.
I would say if Haynes King couldn't run, like you're going to see nearly 300 yards or whatever on Haynes King's stat line and be like, oh, Haynes King played pretty well. Like, If Haynes King couldn't have run, this one could have been pseudo Laffer.
He did have a touchdown run in this game that was pretty much a Cam Auburn touchdown run.
Yes.
Like the hand on the ground. Like even Auburn fans were like, yeah, that looks like him from
He
2010.
is able to, he is certainly able to bail them out with his legs.
Yeah. Overall, though, great win for Syracuse, and we'll see where it takes them. The problem for them has been the back half of the schedule lately, but this is exactly how you want to start. Pitt 28, Cincinnati 27. Pitt was down 27-6 in the third quarter, came back. Biggest comeback as a program since 1971 for Pitt. That's according to E.J. Borghetti, the great sports information director at Pitt. Fair to say, I think, that this was mid-game here when they were down 21, an all-time low point for morale about the state of the Pat Narduzzi Panthers in his tenure was in the middle of this game. I mean, it was just a second year in a row of getting punked by Scott Satterfield, widely regarded as one of the weirdest hires of the last couple cycles, and you're just getting punked twice in a row by these guys. And then everything turned. The big play where it really turned was a fourth down, long touchdown pass from Eli Holstein, the Alabama transfer, who's looked pretty good, to Konate Mumpfield for Pitt, and went for the score, and Pitt ultimately was able to come down and kick a field goal in the final minute to win it. Satterfield was complaining after the game about officiating. Seemed weird, kind of loser energy coming off of him. Dante Corleone was back at tackle for Cincy after the blood clots over the summer. That was great to see. He did get a sack. The middle eight, Richard, it matters. In the last minute of the first half, Cincinnati yanked a 25-yard field goal with like 20, 30 seconds left in the half. Pitt came down, stole 3 on a 53-yarder. Win by 1. It was basically a touchdown turn just off of special team stuff in the last minute of the first half. Virginia Tech 31, Marshall 14.
Marshall's defense is very, very good. Virginia Tech's offense does still leave a little bit to be desired in general. Marshall's offense, you're just not getting anything. You're just not getting anything out of that.
Virginia Tech doesn't really have a robust downfield passing game.
No, but even in the Vanderbilt game, Allie Jennings, like you saw it.
Yeah, and you saw it once, I think really once in this game. There was a deep ball down the left sideline to Steven Gosnell for Tech, who made one of the catches of the week. It went, I think, like 50 yards in the air. There was 2. There was one really long one and then one like 20-something yard ball that drones through. And this was like one of the catches of the day, like full extension laid out. Great catch by Gosnell. But they don't really seem to have it down, so they have to run over some people with Bashal Tootin, and that seems to be a work in progress. Clemson 66, App State 20. Look, App is not the kind of Sunbelt team that you sneeze at by any stretch of the imagination, but Clemson sneezed at them.
They were up like 50 at halftime.
Yeah, it was 35 in the first quarter. Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's one of the great where the hell has this been in recent memory. Monitor Peter Woods for health. It sounded like Dabo sort of said he'd be fine, but monitor it. Just pay attention. Virginia 31, Wake 30 in a shootout. I think this was sort of what we expected from these two teams when, like, going into it.
Well, I mean, I think that we saw a little bit more life from the UVA offense than maybe expected. Anthony Colandrea is fun in the viewing way, and maybe not necessarily always in the coaching way because he's a bit chaotic. He can make some mistakes, but yeah, they made. I think the way that Tony Elliott put it afterward was very true. This was a we made one more play kind of game for them. Wake was driving to win. Bachmeier hit a nice pass over the middle, I think, to Taylor Morin for 20-ish for Wake. And UVA ripped it and took the ball away. And that was it. And that probably flipped the game outcome, that play by the UVA defense after a day when both teams moved the ball. So very impressive stuff for UVA and needed for Tony Elliott to put together wins like this. Friday, Duke 26, Northwestern 22 overtimes. The word from people who care about these teams, I've talked to people on both sides of this, was that it was hard to watch.
And people who don't care about these teams.
Yeah, it was not pretty. I'm definitely out on the Northwestern offense, and I think they are probably going to regress from David Braun's first year. But hey, Duke 2-0 under Manny Diaz. Very nice stuff. Richard, in the Big 12 SEC crossover game here, let's hit it.
That he can run in this situation.
They need a yard for a first down, 6 for a touchdown. If they don't make it, the game's over. 4th down and 1. They're at the Cowboys 6. Green gets the snap, gives it to Hill. They stuff him in the backfield, and Oklahoma State's won the game. They stuff him in the backfield, and Oklahoma State has won this football game. Cowboys flood onto the field. Man, that's a disheartening loss.
That is Chuck Barrett from the Razorback Sports Network from Learfield. When you're out of town, like I was again this weekend at another wedding, Alex, and want to keep up with live college sports, be sure to download the free Varsity Network app, available for both Apple and Android. Listen to the college sports live with the Varsity Network app. And there's a reason he was so comatose in calling the finish to this one. This was a really big, snatch defeat from the jaws of victory here. Like Arkansas should have won this game over and over and over again.
Dude.
Taylon Green has some juice. Arkansas has some juice on offense. Oklahoma State apparently has no juice on offense.
Had nothing. They had nothing in this game.
Alan Bowman's not very good. Ollie Gordon can't run every now and all of a sudden. And yet,
I'm trying to make fewer jokes about point shaving because in this current atmosphere, people might not realize it's a joke. And, gamblers might approach athletes, and this is a big problem in college sports. So I'm not going to joke about point shaving. I'm not going to joke about that. But it's hard not to joke about these things when you consider the ways in which Arkansas gave this game away. It was astonishing. And Oklahoma State kind of tried to give it back to them too, missed field goals, mistakes of their own. But it was like every other play from the middle of the third quarter onward, Arkansas did something that made you think, are they attempting to lose the game? And no, they aren't. But it was brutal, dude. Like if you were trying to tell me that this was all a plot by Arkansas boosters to install Petrino in week 8, I'd have been like, that does seem like that's what that looks. I mean, it was crazy that Arkansas could not find a way to win this game. Pick your comedy of errors. I mean, there's like muff punts, there's missed kicks, there's taking ill-timed sacks, there's missing a wide open wheel route for a touchdown in overtime. Also, the offensive line is still bad. Taylon Green was running for his life in this game.
At some points in time.
Yeah, it's troubling. Very bad loss for Arkansas. This was the Nokian Tires Road Trip of the Week. Go to Nokian Tires, that's tireswithty.com/SCD. Enter your Road Trip of the Week for week 3. Winning game, winning campus will be honored on the show, and you will be entered in a monthly tire drawing. Nokian's ready to be the foundation of your road trips this season. It is the inventor of the winter and all-weather tires, and they want to give away tires to some lucky SCD listeners. They're going to do it. Go to nokiantires.com/SZD. Richard in NOLA, Kansas State 34, Tulane 27. Tulane sort of screwed here in the closing moments, in my opinion. OPI call on basically some hand checking that worked kind of like a pick, but to me was not to the level where you should take a touchdown off the board or call it OPI. Removes a game-tying touchdown, and then Tulane gets stopped. Tulane had him here. In addition to that, 7 of Kansas State's points came on a very casual scoop and score where Darian Mentz lost the ball as we go to our 30-minute clock that we bust through.
Stoppage time.
I'm still really bullish on Tulane. I think they have something in this quarterback. I think that this was a great gift left to John Summerall by the Willie Fritz staff, was that they had gotten in touch and made an offer to this player, Darian Mensah. He was like the third guy in their preseason quarterback battle, and he is serious. He's going to be sought after for as long as he is playing college football.
Utah 23, Baylor 12. Cam Rising's hand a little banged up. I do not trust anything that Kyle Whittingham says about that injury this week. If you followed anything he said about Cam Rising's knee all season last week. So the hand is a touch banged up. The offense did not really have much without him. That is something to pay attention to. With him, however, they were all over Baylor. Baylor stinks. Wazoo 37, Texas Tech 16.
I think the bloom's off the rose.
Yeah, I don't think Texas Tech's very good either.
Nope, I don't either. Their defense is terrible. Their offense isn't good enough. This one was spiritually huge for Wazoo. Some sentimentality in it. Josh Kelly, wide receiver for them, left after last year. Understandable, making his own call. Goes to Texas Tech, where they basically made him a slot receiver. He had a pretty nice game, including a 37-yard catch, but they also ripped the ball off him once. He fumbled. Wazoo just kind of bludgeoned Tech here. John Mateer, the quarterback, who won the job in fall camp. To me, he gives a bit of Taysom Hill. Like, he's a quarterback who doesn't really look like he even wants to throw the ball, and he's like kind of just raring for an opportunity to scramble. And he did it well. He had over 200 yards on the ground in this game. Didn't do much throwing, was not efficient there, but the ground game between him and Wayshawn Parker, a freshman, very, very good. And they seem to love blocking for this guy. Like, Wazoo still has some fun and has some physicality. And yeah, for Tech, I mean, they should be 0-2. They should have lost to FCS Abilene Christian in week 1. So highly concerned about the situation at Texas Tech. Arizona State 30, Mississippi State 23. Cam Scattaboo.
One of
Name
the
to
most
know.
one of the most dexterous large man touchdowns you will ever see from Arizona State in this game of note. Mississippi, I think this is a Mississippi State thing all season. They will be very fun. I think they will be, highly combustible. They're not very good. That's fine.
Yeah, fun but not good. And I think maybe we got a little too excited, or at least I did, about Sam Leavitt, the ASU quarterback, based on the Wyoming performance in week 1. Not a lot going there, but if you have a running back going for 260, then you're going to be okay. And that's exactly what Arizona State had in this game. Weeknight game Friday, BYU 18, SMU 15. Richard, I have no clue what SMU is doing with their quarterbacks.
I don't think anybody does. I don't.
Perplexing. Just utterly perplexing. For a quick recap, Preston Stone, who was their starter last year, got hurt at the end of the year, but was the starter for most of the year, for basically the whole year, for an American Athletic Championship team, is still nominally the starter and starts, but they yank him often. They bring in this other guy, Kevin Jennings, quote, when they're looking for a spark, or to get a spark is the way that Lashley's described it. And it's just weird to be doing this early in a season after the guy with a track record. I don't really understand.
Stone, you could call him nominally the starter, but he threw 4 passes.
Right. Nominally is the word. That's the key adverb there. Yeah, I don't know. And obviously they lost this game. They've played 3. They almost lost to an improved Nevada back in week 0. So it's confusing. I think BYU's offense does not have a lot to write home about, but it was enough here. And
3 of 16 on third down. Now they converted some fourth
for
downs.
BYU.
No, for SMU.
For SMU, excuse me. Okay.
They converted some fourth downs, so that number's a little foggy, but awful. Still bad.
Enoch Nawahine, 4th down touchdown run late third quarter for BYU, wound up being, I think, the key play in this game.
Well, yeah, it was 18-15.
Yep.
ACC schedule's coming up soon, too. All right. FCS grab bag. G5 and FCS grab bag. Oregon State 21, San Diego State 0. San Diego State sub 20 minutes time of possession. They averaged effectively a 4 and out. This is
basically
pretty much a conference game, sort of, as we want to call it. And San Diego State just had nothing.
Their average drive in this game for the Aztecs was 5 plays, 17 yards. They had their best drive of the game was a 6-play, 53-yarder, and it ended on a fumble at the 2. Just Sisyphean, just pushing that boulder up that hill and not doing it successfully. I guess that's the point. You never do it successfully in that story. If San Diego State still can't score after swapping out Brady Hoke for Sean Lewis, then perhaps, Richard, this is God telling San Diego, you're too pleasant a city, the weather's too good, everyone's too fit and healthy, the tacos are too good, you just don't get to score. Maybe that's what's happening in this case.
I think we should travel to San Diego State and do an on-location report to see what's going on. Someone's going to have to get to the bottom of it. Texas State 49, UTSA 10. I know that the Northern Illinois Notre Dame thing is the shock result of the week. This is a stunner. This is a stunner how well they played in this game to beat them. I would say this about Texas State. Offense this, offense that. Jordan McLeod, very good. Ben Bell on defense is a serious player for Texas State. Serious.
And this is just a hugely significant win for narrative, recruiting, pride, also the college football playoff. Texas State in it now, I think.
Also, you have GJ Kinney's future job.
Yeah, and for GJ Kinney's future jobs. The thought was crossing my mind when Baylor was down 23-0 yesterday as this game was
quick
wrapping.
Switcheroo, right? Mid-season quick switcheroo.
The thought did cross my mind that they may not have GJ Kinney for that much longer. All the more reason to treasure this season. Ismail Mahdi and Lincoln Pare torched them on the ground. Chris Don Jr., 150 yards receiving. Very nice for Texas State. I mean, just as great an outcome in a rivalry game as they possibly could have had. Memphis 38, Troy 17. Mario Anderson, the running back for Memphis, is good. They continue to have good running backs. They always will. Troy, I think, is resetting and pretty bad. You can forget the past few years. They're not going to be a factor in much this year. But next week, Richard, Memphis gets a shot at one former head coach of theirs, Mike Norvell. Of course, Ryan Silverfield was the offensive line coach for Mike Norvell. And, man, I got to tell you, eyebrows raised about that one. Eyebrows raised.
I fear that's like trendy upset special. And
it will be very trendy. And
you know what I mean?
And FSU isn't that bad.
Yes. I gotta worry there. Anyway, Army 24, FAU 7. This is a classic. We haven't had a classic Armying, I don't think, in a couple. They changed the offense, weren't very good last year. This is of the vintage with Monken's Gem.
Oh yeah. I mean, you tell me, Richard. Is it of the vintage when you have a guy run for 160 yards on 10 carries?
Yeah, baby.
When you have a kicker, a white kicker wearing the number 99, outrunning everybody on a fake for a touchdown. Is that the vintage? Does that sound Service Academy to you?
Like shit through a tin horn. Army 24. Navy 38. Temple 11. Temple is a very bad football team. We are staring 0-12 in the face.
We are 0-12 watches on hard for Temple. I mean, it's ugly. This was also pretty vintage for Navy, by the way. Kind of the optimal flexman game. Blake Horvath, 15 runs for $122 and 5 of 9 throwing for 112 yards. You know, when it's working well, you take your bits and pieces on the ground all game, and then you hit him over the top a few times. Classic situation for Navy in this game. Very well done. ECU 20, Old Dominion 14. East Carolina has it right in front of them. Rajai Harris had a nice rushing game, $131, 2 touchdowns. ODU defense, kudos on keeping a decent G5 opponent that we think might be pretty good this year to 20, given that Jason Henderson, the very good linebacker for Old Dominion, whom I respect a ton, was not playing. Was in street clothes for this game.
Who you respect a ton.
But Old Dominion is 0-2 now. And tough when you're trying to avoid, if you're a team like Old Dominion and you go and you play South Carolina in week 1 and you give them a good show, it is tough to then go and play kind of a regional G5 opponent that you have some commonalities with and to lose to them in this fashion. Very tough.
ULM 32, UAB 6. You mean to tell me that ULM threw for under 100 yards and beat the brakes off of UAB?
I sure do. General Booty, 16 passes, 87 yards, and you still win in a rout thanks to 3 UAB turnovers. They sacked Jacob Zano for UAB 5 times in this game, and they had 8 total tackles for loss. Richard, we got a report from someone we trust who was monitoring this game in real time very closely that Bryant Vincent, the former UAB coordinator and interim coach under Bill Clark, who did not get the job in favor of Trent Dilfer, was seen being dapped up enthusiastically by UAB's traveling troopers for this game.
Oh, the guys who protect Trent Dilfer when they, when they're
believe so.
Yes. Okay.
What an insult for UAB's administration to have the guy you didn't hire beat you 32-6 with 87 passing yards and get dapped up by your cops.
Western Kentucky 31, Eastern Kentucky 0. Tough one here. There was this funny thing where Western Kentucky scheduled a whiteout but didn't tell anybody, and so Eastern Kentucky was like, "We're the road team. We're going to wear white," and then it didn't matter on the field because Western Kentucky
got their asses kicked. But you have to take the wins when you can get them. This is the rare FBS versus FCS rivalry that is serious, and I think it's pretty serious off the field. If you ask Eastern Kentucky people, they will tell you, and I'm not sure that they're wrong about this, that Western Kentucky is the reason why they have not gotten Conference USA entry, that there's been some territorialism in that regard. That's at least an EKU view that I know is out there and pretty popular among that fan base. So you take the chances you can get to deny them their little color scheme for a whiteout, even if you lose 31-0. That's fine. Richard, did you catch FIU 52, Central Michigan 16?
Can't say that I did, but glad it's on the list here.
Yeah. I think it's about time for Jim McElwain to enjoy retirement, personally. 5 interceptions from Joe Labas, the Central Michigan quarterback, in this game. 1 run back for a touchdown. They also had a turnover on downs. These guys are not good, and I think they have gone backwards from where they were earlier on in McElwain's tenure. Richard, 3 FCS upset draft specials this week. There was only one in week 1. That was the Montana State over New Mexico game. Actually, that was in week 0, not even week 1. Here's St. Francis beats Kent State, 23-17. Idaho beats Wyoming, 23-17. And Southern Utah beats UTEP, 27-24. These were all 5-point games for those of our subscribers participating in the FCS upset draft. And, all sufficiently ugly. And you think that UTEP in particular might be in for a really bad down UTEP year, like kind of the depths of UTEP?
Yeah, they may not be. They may not be. I mean, they may get one. They play Sam Houston. They play Kennesaw. So, yes, I think there are opportunities to get one, but I just keep it on the radar. Keep it on the radar.
Good for Idaho, which gave Oregon a pretty good scare in week 1 and then goes and gets another FBS team in week 2 and beats them. It's a tough thing. It's a tough ask for your players to go and play 2 FBS games in the first 2 weeks of the season, and they definitely deserve to win one of them, and they did that here. So cheers to you, Vandals. Excellent game. Looking forward to seeing you probably in the FCS playoffs at the Kibbie Dome again this year. You look like you have that caliber of team once again. Richard, that was a 45-minute, 30-minute. So we almost kept it on the clock this week.
Longest 30 minutes in college football podcasting.
We will see you on Wednesday for the Split Zone Duo Week 3 tasting menu, overtime show for our subscribers. Talk very soon. Thank you so much for listening. Thanks for supporting. SplitZoneDuo.com is the place to go to get more of this show. Help us make it. We would love to see you over there. Thanks a lot.